It happened in broad daylight, on the edge of Briarwood, a southern city where whispers about police aggression weren't rare. But what unfolded on that Thursday afternoon still shocked even the most hardened residents. A black man sat inside his black sedan, parked legally at a gas station, when a police tow truck roared into the lot. Without warning, the truck's steel claw slammed into the side of his vehicle, crushing metal with a screech loud enough to turn every head. The man scrambled out, shouting. His car, the thing he relied on for work, for dignity, was being ripped apart before his eyes. Cameras were out instantly. Phones in the crowd captured the twisted steel, the man's frantic pleas, and the officers standing stone-faced, as if this was all part of the plan. His name was Marcus Ellison, a 41-year-old father-3. Marcus wasn't flashy. He dressed simply, spoke politely, carried himself with quiet confidence. But behind that modest exterior was a man who had built something significant. A small but thriving car stand, Ellison Auto Imports, a dealership that didn't just sell cars to locals. It supplied fleets of government agencies, city police cruisers, sanitation trucks. Even federal field vehicles had passed through his lot. Few in Briarwood knew the extent of his contracts. Marcus preferred it that way. To most, he was just a hard-working business owner who loved cars and loved his family. That's what made what happened next so unthinkable. The two officers on scene were Officer Ray Denham and Sergeant Tyler Briggs. Denham, 32, was known for his aggressive stops. Proactive policing, as his supporters called it. Briggs, 44, carried himself like a man untouchable, with 20 years in department and the unions backing at every turn. Both men claimed afterward they were responding to a tip about a suspicious vehicle. But witnesses swore the car had been parked for only minutes. Marcus still inside, scrolling through his phone. Suspicion quickly gave way to violence. And that violence became a revelation. Marcus stumbled forward, palms out. "What are you doing?" "That's my car." The steel claw lifted and slammed again, windows exploding into a rain of glass. Briggs shouted, "Step back. This vehicle is subject to seizure." "Seizure for what?" Marcus demanded, his voice cracking with disbelief. Around them, traffic slowed. Strangers muttered, cursed, lifted their phones higher. The sound of grinding metal became a soundtrack to outrage. When the officers yanked the door fully off its hinges, documents spilled from the glove box. Purchase orders, contracts, invoices bearing official seals. It didn't take long for bystanders to notice the letterheads. Federal, state, municipal. Marcus wasn't just another black man in a car. He was a supplier to the government. The video spread before the dust settled. "Cops destroy car in Briarwood." One caption read. Another. They didn't know who they were messing with. By evening, national outlets had picked it up. Marcus's calm but pained face as he tried to reason with the officers became the freeze-frame image. Behind him, his car lay mangled, files scattered like evidence of a life built brick by brick. Briarwood had seen protests before, but never over something this blatant. The question echoed across TV panels and Twitter feeds. Neighbors described him as generous. The man who donated SUVs to the volunteer fire department after their old ones broke down. The guy who quietly covered repair bills when single moms couldn't afford it. Business partners described him as sharp but fair. He was the kind of dealer who answered his own phone at 2 a.m. if a city fleet broke down. One said, the public learned that Ellison Auto Imports had government contracts stretching back a decade, many renewed on performance and reliability. So why had two officers treated him like a suspect? The Briarwood Police Department issued a statement within 24 hours. Our officers acted on credible information regarding a potentially stolen vehicle. The matter is under review. But it wasn't enough. The footage clearly showed Marcus identify himself, producing documents, begging them to stop. The car wasn't stolen. It was his. The paperwork spilling into the street proved it. And in destroying it, the officers had triggered something much larger than a property dispute. For days, Marcus refused interviews. He stayed home, curtains drawn, phone off. His wife, Denise, told reporters, he's shaken. We all are. The kids saw the video. They can't understand why their father was treated like a criminal. When Marcus finally spoke, his words were careful, They thought I was nobody. They thought I was powerless. They were wrong. Internal Affairs assigned Detective Carla Ruiz, a 39-year-old Latina officer with a reputation for fairness. She reviewed the footage frame by frame. Something bothered her. Briggs signaling to the tow truck driver before even approaching Marcus, almost as if the destruction had been pre-planned. When she pulled the dispatch logs, she found no recorded tip about a stolen vehicle. The official justification was a lie. Rumors swirled quickly. Some claimed Denham and Briggs had ties to a rival dealership, one that had repeatedly lost bids to Marcus's company. Others whispered about kickbacks, political favors, contracts worth millions. For the first time, Marcus's quiet empire was under a spotlight, not because of scandal of his own making, but because of brutality inflicted on him. Marcus sat in his garage late one night, staring at what was left of the sedan. The crumpled hood, the bent axle. He whispered to himself, "I built everything from nothing." And in 10 minutes they tried to take it away. His hands trembled. Rage mingled with despair. For a man who had prided himself on control of his business, control of his reputation, control of his future, that control had been ripped apart with his car door. Protests erupted outside Briarwood Police Headquarters. Signs read, "Cars for the city, dignity for Marcus." Council members demanded answers. Editorials blasted the reckless policing culture that targeted a man who supplied the very cars officers drove. Briggs and Denham were placed on administrative leave. But to the crowds, it wasn't enough. Ruiz traced the tow truck company. Its contracts were unusually tied to one dealership, Crescent Auto Group. Crescent had competed against Marcus's firm for years. She pulled records, donations to union leaders, dinners with commanders, photographs of executives shaking hands with city officials. The pieces clicked. This wasn't a simple mistake. It was sabotage. At a community forum, Marcus finally raised his voice. "They tore apart my car because they thought tearing apart my dignity would be just as easy. But my life's work is not scrap metal. It is cars that put your officers on the street, your fire trucks on the road, your ambulances in motion. And if they can do this to me, a man who literally keeps the city moving, what chance does the average man have?" The crowd thundered. His voice, steady but raw, became the movement's new heartbeat. Detective Ruiz prepared her preliminary report. She slid it into her captain's inbox with a sinking feeling. It named names, not just Denham and Briggs, but links to Crescent Auto Group and possible corruption inside the department itself. That night, as she left the precinct, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Back off, Ruiz," the voice said coldly, "or you'll end up under the same truck as Ellison's car." She froze in the parking lot, phone trembling in her hand. The case was no longer about one man's car. It was about a system built on intimidation, and how far they'd go to protect it. Detective Carla Ruiz sat in her car long after the anonymous call ended, the threat replaying in her mind. "Back off, Ruiz, or you'll end up under the same truck as Ellison's car." The words weren't random. Whoever had said them knew exactly how Marcus's car was destroyed. Not just towed or seized, but tore apart under a tow truck steel claw. That level of detail meant one thing. Inside knowledge. She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles pale. She had worked corruption cases before, but this was different. This was personal. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, papers scattered before him. Insurance claims, repair estimates, legal notices. His wife Denise rubbed his shoulder, whispering, "You can't fight them alone." "I won't," Marcus said softly. "But I can't stay silent either." His daughter Maya peeked around the corner, clutching her homework. "Daddy," she said, voice trembling, "are they going to take our house too?" The words broke him in ways that crushed steel never could. Ruiz began digging into Crescent Auto Group. On paper, they were a legitimate competitor to Ellison Auto Imports. But financial records told another story. Crescent's tow truck subsidiary, the very company that destroyed Marcus's sedan, had received millions in inflated city contracts. Contracts signed off by none other than Captain Richard Harlow, Marcus's antagonist in city procurement meetings. Worse, Ruiz found multiple connections between Crescent executives and Sergeant Tyler Briggs, the officer who had ordered Marcus's car destroyed. Dinners, golf trips, donations to the police union fund. It wasn't circumstantial. It was systemic. When Ruiz tried to pull Briggs's personnel file, she hit a wall. Restricted access, the database read. Even as an internal affairs investigator, she was locked out. Her supervisor offered no help. Carla, don't make this your crusade. You've got kids. Think about your future. She stared at him, anger simmering. What about Marcus's kids? At Ellison Auto Imports, Marcus tried to keep business moving. Customers still came in, curious about the man in the viral video. Some offered support. Others came just to gawk. But the harassment began almost immediately. Anonymous calls. Tires slashed on the lot. One morning, he arrived to find a spray-painted message across his office door. Stay in your lane. The same day, a city fleet contract was temporarily suspended for review. It was clear. Someone wanted him crushed, not just his car. That night, Denise begged him, please, Marcus, think about the kids. If you go head-to-head with them, they'll destroy everything. Marcus stared at the photo on the mantle, himself shaking hands with the mayor at the ribbon cutting for a new police fleet. They already tried, he whispered. But if I don't fight back, what lesson do my kids learn? That power wins? That we bow down? Ruiz found an unexpected ally in Assistant DA Marcus Hale, a prosecutor with a reputation for taking on tough cases. Hale had been watching the news closely. They think Ellison's just one man. They're wrong, Hale told Ruiz over coffee. If Crescent and Briggs are in bed together, that's racketeering. That's federal. Ruiz frowned. Then why hasn't anyone acted? Hale's reply was grim. Because Crescent has friends everywhere. Ruiz received a tip that Marcus's dealership had once sold a batch of defective vehicles. She followed it, combing through maintenance logs, interviewing buyers. It turned out to be a smear, orchestrated by Crescent, planned to discredit Marcus in the press. But the distraction wasted 3 days. 3 days in which Marcus's situation worsened. Unable to contain his anger, Marcus confronted Sergeant Briggs in public outside police headquarters. You destroyed my car, my livelihood. Marcus shouted. Briggs smirked. You should thank me. Could have been worse. Cameras caught it. The smirk. The arrogance. The disdain. It only fueled the fire. But later that night, Marcus's phone buzzed with a block number. Careful, Ellison. Families of accidents. Officer Ray Denham, younger and less hardened than Briggs, cracked under pressure. Ruiz found him in the parking lot after his shift. Why'd you do it, Denham? She pressed. He avoided her eyes. Orders. From who? Briggs. Always Briggs. But it ain't just him. You don't get it. Ruiz. You can't fight it. Crescent owns half the department. His voice shook. He walked away, but the fear in his eyes told her everything. Marcus sat alone in his office, lights off, staring at stacks of canceled contracts. His once bustling dealership felt hollow. For the first time, he considered walking away, taking his family, leaving Briarwood, starting fresh somewhere else. But then he thought of Maya's trembling voice. Daddy, are they going to take our house too? No, he couldn't leave. He had to stand. Protests swelled again. Signs read, Justice for Ellison. Banners outside City Hall demanded accountability. But behind closed doors, Crescent executives reassured officials. It'll blow over. The public forgets. What they didn't realize, this time, people weren't forgetting. Late one night, Marcus awoke to the sound of shattering glass. He rushed outside to find flames licking the side of his dealership. A Molotov cocktail had been thrown through the front window. He grabbed a fire extinguisher, coughing, his son Jordan crying behind him. Neighbors rushed with hoses. Together, they stopped the blaze. But the message was clear. This wasn't about intimidation anymore. It was about destruction. Analyzing Crescent's financials again, Ruiz spotted something she had missed before. A pattern of payments to a shell company. The company's registered agent was none other than Captain Richard Harlow. The corruption reached higher than she had feared. She printed the documents, her heart racing. Proof. Finally, proof. Marcus stood on the dealership lot the next morning, surveying the charred damage. Denise hugged him tightly. "They won't stop until you're gone," she whispered. He opened his mouth to reply when a black SUV screeched to a halt across the street. Two masked men jumped out. Before Marcus could react, one raised a weapon and fired. The shot echoed across Briarwood. The bullet tore through the quiet morning like thunder. Marcus Ellison stumbled backward, clutching his side as Denise screamed. Glass shattered behind him, the dealership sign cracking in half. The black SUV sped away, tires shrieking against asphalt. Neighbors ran. Phones came out. Marcus's children clung to Denise, their cries piercing the chaos. He dropped to one knee, blood seeping between his fingers. "Don't let them win," he gasped. Then he collapsed. Bright surgical lamps blurred above Marcus as paramedics wheeled him through the ER doors. He drifted in and out of consciousness, catching fragments of voices. Pressures dropping. Gunshot wound left abdomen. "Where's his wife? Get her out." Denise stood in the waiting room, shaking. Her hands were sticky with his blood. Maya and Jordan pressed against her side, silent, terrified. Every tick of the clock felt like a lifetime. Detective Carla Ruiz pushed through the ER doors minutes later, badge swinging. She'd heard the call over dispatch. Shots fired, possible retaliation. She found Denise pale and trembling. "They tried to kill him," Denise whispered. Ruiz nodded grimly. "And they almost succeeded. But we're not letting this disappear." Her eyes hardened. She knew the department would try to frame this as random violence. She wouldn't let them. Assistant DA Marcus Hale arrived shortly after, carrying a folder thick with documents. "This is it," he told Ruiz in a low voice. "The payments, the contracts, the shell companies. I can tie Crescent Auto Group to Captain Harlow. It proves motive." Ruiz shook her head. "Not if Marcus dies. They'll bury it all as hearsay." Both of them turned toward the operating room doors. Everything hung on whether Marcus survived. That afternoon, Captain Richard Harlow stood at a press conference. Cameras flashed. "This department is investigating a tragic act of violence against Mr. Ellison," he announced smoothly. "At this time, we have no reason to believe it was connected to his earlier incident with our officers." Ruiz clenched her fists watching the broadcast in the hospital lounge. The words weren't just false. They were calculated. Hours later, a surgeon emerged, peeling off gloves. "He's stable. The bullet missed major arteries. He'll need weeks of recovery, but he's alive." Denise collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief. Maya hugged her brother Jordan so tightly he squeaked. For the first time in days, hope returned, but Ruiz knew survival didn't mean safety. By evening, a different story circulated online. Anonymous blogs claimed Marcus was involved in illegal car shipments. Others suggested the shooting was tied to gang disputes. Ruiz stormed into Hale's office. "They're manufacturing dirt faster than we can disprove it." Hale spread the printouts across his desk. "This is classic. Distract the public. Confuse the narrative. Bury the truth." Ruiz's jaw set. "Then we don't just disprove it. We expose it." In Marcus's hospital room, Denise sat holding his hand. His face was pale, his voice a whisper. "They want me gone," Marcus said. "They can't have you," Denise insisted. "Not while I'm breathing." He looked at her with tired eyes. "Promise me if anything happens, you'll keep the dealership running. Don't let them erase me." Denise squeezed his hand hard. "Nothing's happening to you. We fight together." Ruiz tracked Crescent shell companies to a suburban office park. Empty rooms, just mailboxes and paper trails. But tucked inside one file cabinet, she found a binder. Crescent's fleet contracts with the city. Margins marked up 3 times higher than market rate. The signature at the bottom, Captain Richard Harlow. It was enough to drag him into court, if she could stay alive long enough. Officer Ray Denham reached out to Ruiz secretly. His conscience gnawed at him. "They told me Marcus was dirty," he confessed in a parking garage. "That's why I went along." But it was a lie. Briggs and Harlow. They set him up to clear the way for Crescent. They get kickbacks on every fleet order. Ruiz recorded every word. But she also knew Denham's fear was real. If he talked too loudly, he'd be the next body in the ER. From his hospital bed, Marcus insisted on speaking to press. Cameras crowded his room. "They can smear me all they want," he said, voice weak but firm. "But I supply this city's cars. I've kept your officers on the road, your ambulances running, your fire trucks rolling. And yet, those same officers try to crush me, to silence me. This is bigger than me. It's about corruption that poisons everything we rely on." His words spread far beyond Briarwood. National headlines ran with it. Crescent struck back. Within 48 hours, their lawyers filed a lawsuit claiming Marcus had defamed their company. "This is intimidation," Hale told reporters. Pure and simple. But Ruiz knew lawsuits weren't their only weapon. The threats would escalate. At a rally outside City Hall, Denise stood before hundreds. "My husband nearly died because he wouldn't bow to corruption. If they think they can scare us into silence, they've forgotten who really owns this city. The people." The crowd erupted. Chants filled the air. Justice for Marcus. For Crescent and their allies, Denise had just become another problem. Protests grew. Businesses chose sides. Some city officials called Marcus a hero. Others warned he was destabilizing Briarwood. The divide cut through churches, schools, neighborhoods. Families argued over dinner tables. Briarwood wasn't just debating corruption. It was being consumed by it. Hale cornered Ruiz late one evening. "We're running out of time. If Harlow senses how close we are, he'll torch the evidence. Or worse." Ruiz leaned on the wall, exhausted. "Then we need something undeniable. Something that ties Crescent Briggs and Harlow together in a way no one can spin." Hale hesitated. "And what that means putting Ellison in more danger?" She met his eyes. "Then we make sure he survives it." One night, as Denise left the hospital, a man stepped from the shadows. "You don't know me," he whispered, slipping an envelope into her hands. "But I know Crescent. Everything you need is in there. Just don't say my name." Then he vanished into the dark. Inside the envelope, photographs of Crescent executives meeting with Briggs and Harlow in a private club. Time-stamped. Clear. Unmistakable. Ruiz raced to deliver the envelope to her secure case file. But when she arrived at her office, the drawer was already open. The binder she'd seized from Crescent was gone. Her stomach dropped. Only a handful of people knew where she kept it. And one of them was standing in the doorway now. Her own supervisor. He smiled faintly. "You're in way over your head. Carla, walk away before it gets worse." The next morning, Marcus awoke to find his hospital guard missing. The chair outside his room sat empty. Before he could press the call button, the door creaked open. Sergeant Tyler Briggs stepped inside, silencer in hand. Marcus's breath caught. He tried to reach for the alarm. Briggs closed the door softly. "This ends tonight." The door closed with a click. Sergeant Tyler Briggs stepped into the hospital room, his silhouette framed by the harsh fluorescent lights. Marcus lay propped against pillows, stitches still raw, for dripping at his side. His hand hovered inches from the call button. Briggs raised a pistol, suppressor gleaming. "You should have kept quiet, Ellison. Nobody cares about your dealership. Nobody cares about you." Marcus forced a weak smile. "Then why are you here, Briggs? If I didn't matter, you wouldn't need to finish me off." For the first time, Briggs hesitated. His finger hovered on the trigger, but his eyes flickered with doubt. And in that split second, the door burst open. Detective Carla Ruiz tackled Briggs from behind. The gun clattered to the floor. Nurses screamed as the two wrestled, fists flying for poles toppling. Marcus hit the call button, alarms blaring. It took 3 security guards to drag Briggs away, snarling like a cornered animal. Marcus exhaled, sweat soaking his hospital gown. He knew survival was no longer luck. It was war. Later that night, Ruiz confronted her supervisor, Lieutenant Grant, in the precinct parking lot. The stolen binder was tucked under his arm. "You sold us out," Ruiz spat. Grant smirked. "This city runs on deals, Carla. Always has." You think you can rewrite the rules because some car dealer got roughed up? Walk away while you still have a career. She stepped closer. I'd rather lose my badge than lose my soul. Grant's smirk faltered when Ruiz revealed her phone, recording the entire exchange. His arrogance had just become evidence. Back at the hospital, Denise sat beside Marcus. He was pale, but his grip was strong. They won't stop, he whispered. I know, she said softly. He turned his head toward her. Then you have to decide. Do we disappear into silence, or do we stand and finish this fight? Denise thought of Maya and Jordan, their wide eyes watching the chaos consume their family. She thought of every lie splashed across the news, every smirk on Harlow's face. Her jaw tightened. We finish it. Together. The photographs Denise received, Crescent executives with Harlow and Briggs in that private club, were leaked anonymously to the press. By morning, Briarwood was on fire. Headlines screamed of corruption, bribery, and kickbacks. Crowds swarmed City Hall, chanting Marcus's name. Crescent's lawyers scrambled. Harlow vanished from public view. The city wasn't just divided anymore. It was enraged. Weeks later, Marcus Ellison rolled into the courthouse in a wheelchair, stitches still healing. Denise walked beside him, her hand never leaving his. Inside, Assistant D.A. Hale laid out the evidence. The contracts, the payments, the recordings of Denham and Grant, the photographs. Crescent Auto Group, Hale thundered, was not a business partner of the city. It was a parasite, and these officers, sworn to protect Briarwood, sold their badges for kickbacks. Every word landed like a hammer. When Ruiz took the stand, her voice never wavered. She described the threats, the smears, the assassination attempt. The courtroom hung on her every word. And then Marcus spoke. I was forced to my knees in the middle of the street, Marcus told the jury, voice low but steady. Not because I broke the law, but because I stood up to men who thought they were the law. They tried to crush me with a truck. They tried to smear my name. They tried to kill me. But I am still here, and I will not kneel again. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Cameras captured every syllable. It took the jury less than a day. Guilty. Captain Harlow, Sergeant Briggs, Lieutenant Grant, Crescent executives. The city erupted in cheers outside the courthouse. For the first time in years, accountability felt real. Marcus wheeled out into the sunlight, Denise at his side, Ruiz and Hale just steps behind. Strangers lined the steps, clapping, chanting his name. For once, Briarwood felt united. In the months that followed, Crescent dissolved. Contracts were audited. New oversight boards were established. Marcus rebuilt his dealership, though scars lingered. Denise became a community leader, advocating for transparency in city contracts. Ruiz kept her badge, but she carried the weight of betrayal everywhere she went. Hale was promoted, but he never forgot the night Marcus nearly bled out while corruption laughed. The city was cleaner, but it was not healed. Standing before a crowd at a community forum, Marcus ended his speech with a quiet truth. Justice isn't something handed down from on high. It's something ordinary people demand over and over again until the powerful are forced to listen. They tried to force me to kneel. Instead, they kneel before the truth. This story wasn't just about Marcus Ellison or Denise or Ruiz. It was about every voice that refuses to be silenced. Every person who dares to stand even when the weight of the system tries to press them down. And it leaves us with a question. Backhand index pointing right if corruption stared you in the face. Would you kneel in silence? Or would you stand, even if it cost you everything?